So we're going to get into it proper. I'm very excited. We get to kick things off. First, I want to thank our sponsor, Spectrum. Now we got some salespeople in the room, so I want to see a thumbs up to you all as I give this little Spectrum pitch. You'll do it well. Spectrum's products and services are powered and innovated by Charter Communications, the leading broadband communications company and the second largest broadband communication and entertainment provider in the United States. Yes, good, excellent. We're thrilled to be joined by three leaders from within Charter, different organizations within there as part of their sales team. And we're going to talk about hiring now, joining that Spectrum sales team. I want to thank Mary, Michelle, and Nakesha for joining us. And we're going to kick it off by asking that you introduce yourself. You tell us what's your name, what do you do with Spectrum, and maybe tell us something, whether it's big or small, whether it's personal, professional, that you're very proud of. Maybe we'll go around the room and we'll hear from Nakesha, then Michelle, and then Mary.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. And Joshua, thank you so much for having us. It's great to be a part of the panel today. So I am Nakesha Walker. I'm the Senior Director for Stores. I manage customer experience and sales across 73 stores and about 500 employees in the Carolina region. And something I'm most proud of, I would say, in my career, over the last 3 years, we've had the opportunity to build out stores. And I've personally been a part of building out 57 stores in the last 3 years. And it's just been such a great experience to hire new leaders, create new opportunity, and promote across the journey. So that would be what I would share. Thank you.
Hi, Joshua, Michelle Wolloff. Thank you and Fairygodboss for having us on. We're excited to be able to chat with you all today. I am the Vice President of Mid-Market Sales for the West, so I run everything west of Colorado, team of about 150, 200 folks across that segment. The thing that I'm the most proud of is on a personal note, which is raising 2 children while growing a career, and they're 2 contributing members of society, and I'm very proud of them. So
that's awesome. Congrats, Michelle and Nakesha. And Joshua, thank you so much for having us. It's my pleasure to be here. My name is Mary Hermes. I'm the Vice President of Media and Entertainment for Spectrum Reach, which is the advertising sales division of Charter Communications. Thrilled to be here. And I would say I'm most proud of, making the transition from, I was on the media buying side before and have moved into sales. And it's because of panels like these and women supporting women that we're all here talking today. And I'm really proud of being a part of a company that holds that in such high regard.
Excellent. It's so great to meet all of you and hear these professional and personal accomplishments. Just a reminder, everybody who's just joined, we will be recording this and sending it to you. In the chat, drop anything you want to say, and the Q&A, drop anything you want to ask. Let's say this. I want you to think back in your mind to that moment where you made that decision in your heart to say, I'm going to put an application in. I want to work for this company, especially in sales specifically. Tell us how long you've been with Spectrum and what made you do that? What made you say this is the right company for me to join? Maybe we can hear from Mary and then Nakesha and then Michelle.
Yes, of course. So thank you. I was actually a client of Time Warner Cable, so pre-merger, pre-Spectrum Reach, and just always had such an excellent experience from the sales team. And it was an honor when they considered me as an account executive 10 years ago to come over. And I describe myself as a nerd fan of the company because I think that we do a really great job. I'm in my 4th role here. And the truth is that as someone who grew up in the Midwest and didn't have a lot of exposure to sales, I did not think sales was for me at all. In fact, I was a little apprehensive about it. And it's been one of the best leaps of faith I've ever made. So that's my accidental sort of entree into sales.
I think that happens to a lot of us. A lot of us end up in sales without there's not a lot of, little 8-year-old girls and little 8-year-old boys saying to themselves, when I grow up, I'm going to be a salesperson, right?
Yes.
Nakesha, how about you?
All right. So I just celebrated 20 years with the company in September. Yes. So thank you. And I would say how I found out about the company and what made me want to join is similar to this panel. There was a community board at the time that was being posted, and it was highlighting benefits with the company. And I decided to apply. And I think what attracted me to charter was just the opportunity to grow and a company that seemed to be everywhere. So I felt like the longevity potential was great, and here I am.
Well, I can't say 20 years, so Nakesha, that's pretty awesome. I've been with the company 3.5 years, and I strategically went after Spectrum for 3 reasons. One, the strong brand, so very, very strong brand integrity. The second is the products. So we have the best products in the industry, bar none. And then leading a commercial sales team, also the pricing and packaging. And so the way we go to market, if you will. And then on the back end, the core values of the organization, after doing the research that I did, fit with the core values that I have.
Thank you. That's fantastic. It's great to hear. We have a very wide range of experience here, right? From 3.5, 10 years, 20 years. I don't know if I've done anything for 20 years. That's fantastic, Nakesha. That is an accomplishment and a half. So, of course, you all are in, as we mentioned, different segments of the business. So I want to hear a little bit more to try to understand what makes that unique. Like, for instance, Mary had said Reach was kind of like the sales and marketing arm of Charter. So just give us a little bit more about what your sales organization is like, what it does. Maybe, Michelle, you could start by helping us to understand enterprise.
Sure. So what I run is mid-market sales. So think any business from one location up to 20 and less than 400 employees. So very, very narrow in terms of scope. So we go after a very specific type of market group and folks in that market. And we provide a wide range of services to them, everything from fiber internet access all the way to Ethernet services, phone services, PRI, SIP, UC, et cetera.
Interesting. Michelle, how does that differ from you within the Reach team? Or I'm sorry, Mary, how does that differ between you and the Reach team?
Sure. So as the advertising sales division, our scope is actually fairly wide. So we have a very large local sales team, and then as well as a national sales team. So we are working with everyone from your local stores for advertising, as well as to national brands across our enterprise. So it's engaging with agencies as well as local customers direct.
Excellent.
Joshua, I think to add to that, so on Mary's side, they're selling the advertising, right? And we're selling the products and services. So that might be another way to delineate.
Yeah, that's excellent to know. And then, Nakesha, with Spectrum stores, what's unique about that? How's that sales organization put together?
So thank you. So great question, especially now. So we are in the stores. We are focused on customer experience and sales. But over the last 3 years, what's been exciting is what I shared earlier, and that's our build out. So especially as now we are offering our mobile product in addition to some of the products and services that Michelle mentioned. But now we, over the last 3 years, have been really committed to getting into all of the communities that we served or within close proximity, and we're building out these beautiful stores. And that's been that's the most important focus for us right now, is that build out, and then just the layers of leadership and growth that we've been able to build upon through that process has been really exciting.
Excellent. So this is going to give us 3 very unique perspectives as we answer these next questions. And this is the part for everybody who's in the audience. This is the part where you came for. All due respect to the backgrounds that you have. This is the part where everybody's here. This is where all the questions are going to come in. Reminder, when you have a question, throw it in that Q&A section. We'll get to it by the end of the call, all right? Let's start off, and this is, anytime I interview a salesperson to join my team, I always like to ask them this first. Why sales is your career? What was it about sales that made you wake up one day and say, this is it. This is where I'm gonna make a home. This is where I'm gonna make a living. Maybe Mary, you could go first, and then we'll hear from Michelle and then Nakesha.
Great, thank you so much. As I mentioned, it was having been on the other side, on the buying side of advertising and moving into sales. And I think what I enjoy about both sides is that that personal human relationship and being solutions oriented. And for me, I'm in such an amazing place to be solutions oriented because we're able to utilize all of the products, to Michelle and Nakesha's point, that we have to really come up with comprehensive advertising solutions for our clients. So the selling is less of a hard sell and more of a solutions-based conversation, which is where I really enjoy and thrive.
I bet there's a lot of people in the audience that saying that rings true the way I approach my sales process. How about you, Michelle? What made you love sales and say, this is what my career is?
So for me, I remember being in 7th grade, and I was a brownie, and I was selling Girl Scout cookies. And all of a sudden, I was at this point where I was actually going to win a down jacket and coat. And I was like, if I just sell 5 more boxes, Mom, I'm going to get this. I'm going to get this. And something inside of me said, I really like that. I got a lot out of it internally, having a goal like that and being able to achieve it, right? So when I was little, it was more along the lines of I got a taste of it, right, being a brownie and selling Girl Scout cookies. The second piece of it is when you start leading teams and you start watching people achieve things that maybe they weren't even sure that they were going to be able to achieve. There's something incredibly rewarding about that when you're leading a team. So one sort of a long time ago and one more recent of why I like to be in the career.
That's so, both those stories are great, but I really love that second point you bring out. It reminds me when I first got into sales and the woman who hired me, and she was my mentor, she is to this day. And every time I would thank her for helping teach me something, she would always say, no, thank you for learning it. Thank you. And I didn't get that until I started leading people. And then you get that joy that you feel, as you mentioned, when you see somebody succeed. It's a whole, the closing the deal yourself is a joy. There's a rush. But when you help a salesperson close the deal, it's a whole other rush. It's fantastic. How about you, Nakesha? Why made sales your career?
So I would say I am extremely competitive. Extremely. I love to win in anything. I am the mom that never let my kids win in any game. But I like to win. I love a challenge. So being competitive is where it started. But also, I'm a people person. As Mary said, I love connecting with people. I think being in sales allows us to learn the needs of a customer or anyone and then come up with a solution. And as much as I am competitive, I love to sell to almost anyone. So those two go hand in hand. And I think, Joshua, to what you just mentioned, I had really good mentors early in my career. And as much as I loved sales and I was competitive, sometimes just having a mentor point you into that direction really plays, a big role. And that's exactly what happened to me. I would say in some case, that mentor seen it before I did as well. So, and here we are.
That's excellent. For everybody who's joining, all the attendees, drop in the chat. Tell us why you love sales. What made you say this is the career I want to have? And then we're going to ask another question here from the group. Also drop in what skills you think are most important as a salesperson. That's what I want to know next from the group. I'm going to start with Nakesha. I want you to talk to me about the skills that you think has made you so successful as a salesperson. We've heard competition. We've heard love of people. But give us some more. Let's get finite here.
All right. So, great question. So, I would say the ability to build relationships, whether it's networking within the role or just customers, building rapport is really important. Learning needs to get there. You have to build a relationship, whether it's a 30-second conversation or 2-minute conversation. So, I think my ability to build really good relationships has helped. And then also, I would say being a change agent. We are a very fast moving company. We've been really forward in a lot of the things and the products we've been brought to market, which is exciting. So, as an employee, or what I'm looking for in a candidate, that takes a lot of flexibility. So, I think being a change agent is really important in this environment, and that's something I look for as well.
Those are two very big ones. I think it's one that we hear a lot, people say, but I like some of the examples you were giving there. How about you, Mary? When you think of skills that have helped you succeed, what do you think of?
I'm taking little notes as I'm thinking so I don't lose anything. And Nakesha, I'm glad I'm going after you, but also I was writing this very same two down. It's cliched, but the only constant is change. So that adaptability and willingness to lean in on, just as you said, our company is very forward moving and we're at the forefront of things. And that means that you can't get too comfortable in your current role, and you need to be looking a little bit ahead. So I think that adaptability is major. And I also think that the relationship building is critical, because, to be able to share your solution and share your sale and your story, you first have to have an engaged audience. So that for sure is the most critical.
I want to pull on that concept of relationship building in a second, but before we do, let's hear Michelle. What are the skills that you think of?
Yeah, so for me, boiling it down to its simplest form, people buy from people, right? And so you have to be able to garner trust, and you garner trust by listening, right? So we have something to sell, we have a quota to hit. The folks that we're selling to don't care about that. They want to make sure that their internet works, that their POS system works, right? That their phones work. So being able to build that level of trust by listening would be the first piece for me. That's the same to do with your teams as well, because your teams aren't going to do what you need them to do if you're not listening to them, right? The second piece of it with sales, sometimes more than maybe with other career paths, is you have to be internally motivating yourself, right? It's an individual sport, but it has a team outcome. So to Nakesha's point, I was a competitive gymnast all while I was growing up, and that's an individual sport, right, but with a team outcome. And so there's three things that have helped me throughout my entire career, all at different points, but one is visualizing. Really visualize, what do you want? Do you want the sale? Do you want the relationship, the discovery meeting, whatever it may be, right? So really visualize what it is you're looking for. Trust your instincts. I mean, I think we can all look back on times and situations where we did something and our gut said that probably wasn't the right thing for us to do, right? So as you're growing your career or looking to move into a different career or a different path, trust your instincts. And then the last one is learn from your mistakes. I mean, we've all made them, and I'll make 10 more before the day's out, right? So learn from those mistakes, so that when you are continuing your career path, whether it be in sales or anything else, you really have that foundation to grow from.
I love those 3 points. They are so good in sales. You can also use them when you're thinking about getting a haircut. All 3 of those things will help you when you're getting a haircut. Those are dynamite. Here's the thing I want to pull on, right? And I'm going to be a little provocative here. You know that old saying, people buy from people they like? Is that still true? We're talking about relationship building, building trust, building credibility. But is that, and now in day and age, I mean, come on, don't we sometimes buy from people we don't really like that much? But what are your thoughts? I'm being provocative on purpose. Maybe we could hear from Mary first, then Michelle, then Nakesha.
I still stand by the relationship critical, but to answer your question directly, yes, of course. If you have a compelling story, I would imagine you can overcome that piece of it. But I'm pretty leaning in on the the people-to-people connection. What do
And
you guys think?
obviously,
I can definitely see it both ways. I would say even within stores, if I'm looking across the full landscape, when you talk about people buying from people, and along the same lines of what Michelle said, yes, we all are offering within the same store the same products and services, but leader to leader, employee to employee, there is definitely a difference when you build good relationships, where you build that trust. People want to listen. They're listening to understand versus listening to reply, which is really important. And I think that happens when you build those type of relationships. So I definitely can see it both ways, for sure.
Thank you all. Hey, let's take a break. That was a pretty intense couple of questions, right? We're going pretty deep there. So let's have a fun one, kind of a quick one here. Maybe everyone can give one book or podcast or blog or some resource that they like to use on a regular basis that just helps them continuously build their sales muscle. How about you, Nakesha?
All right, so I'll start with one of my favorite podcasts right now, and it's called How I Built This, and it's by Guy Raz. So great podcast, a lot of focus on entrepreneurs, but also leaders in any realm. And I think, being competitive and just a sales leader, I mean, it is so inspirational to hear about how people start on their journey. People talk about mentors, one experience, the turn down that they consistently get, how many no's you get before you get that yes. So every week I'm tuned in to hear the next story. I always walk away with notes. I also encourage anyone, even when you're listening to a podcast, treat it like a class and take notes. And give yourself a task to work on. And then I'll add one more. My most recent favorite book is a book called Educated, and it's by Tara Westover. It's a memoir. I really recommend this book for anyone, but it's about a woman's struggle to create her own narrative. And it's just, I don't want to take away from the story, but it's just a great book. And just hopefully hearing that, a woman creating her own narrative, encourages someone to maybe tune in a little bit and look it up. But great book.
Excellent. How about you, Michelle?
So the book for me is The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. It's a book that is basically we're the sum of very small decisions that we make. And it's a fantastic book about being able to achieve what you want to achieve and the differences between success and failure. For me, also, Headspace is an app that I use a lot. It's a meditation app, but there's a lot of different stories and things like that, and there are folks talking about different things that they've overcome, things that they've achieved. So it'd be Headspace and The Slight Edge.
Excellent. Mary?
Amazing. My podcast also, I live in New York City, so my commute on the way into work, I, much like Michelle, like an app, I use Calm app. I think they're very similar, but I think it's just a nice way to start the day. So you're able to reflect and get ready, even if you're surrounded by chaos on a subway or driving to your office. I think starting your day intentionally that way is really important. And my book is one called Strength Finder, and it's one that a leader here introduced to me, and another mentor shared with me once that, we all can be as self-aware as possible as our strengths and our weaknesses, but it's ever so much more fruitful to lean in on where your strengths are than trying to bolster your weaknesses up. It's okay you can't be great at everything. So really focusing on where you're great is going to bear way more fruit than trying to get your weaknesses up to strengths. So I think it's a book that you can, you take a quick panel online and they come back with your top 5 strengths based on how you answer.
Excellent. Thank all three of you for those wonderful suggestions. So we're going to jump back in it. We're going to start asking some more of these hard questions. So the audience, I know your mind's going to start jogging as they say these things. The wheel's going to turn. Remember, throw your questions in the Q&A. We have some great ones that we're going to be addressing at the end of the session here. Let's talk about where the rubber meets the road, because The saying is hiring now. That's the title here. It's not learning now, it's hiring now. You got open roles. We have people here who want to fill them for you, right? So let's talk about this. It's a two-part question. We'll start with Michelle, then Mary, and then we'll finish with Nakesha. I want you to say, okay, here's a skill, here's a quality that I look for when I'm interviewing somebody to join my team. But don't just give us that. Don't just say, they're curious. I want you to back that up by saying, what piece of advice would you give somebody who's interviewing you on how they can show you they have that quality, how they can prove it, not just talk about it, be about it, right? So we'll start with Mary. What quality do you look for, and what advice do you give to how to show it?
Am I starting? Okay. Okay. So I think that authenticity is something really important, and I think that it can be intimidating, a first interview, and you want to show up as your best self, but you also want to show up as your true self. And I think that, you know, within just in the same as I'm looking for someone who's going to be a networker and a relationship builder, and that natural, to your point, curiosity is something that when you show up, be it on Zoom or in person or on the telephone, being true to yourself is really important. So, you know, not having a canned answer of what you think your interviewer wants to hear, but instead really, you know, coming at it from your real world experience, because that you can't replicate that.
Very, very true. How about you, Michelle? What quality do you look for, and what advice would you give?
So the first one that I look for is confidence. So, and it sort of ties nicely, I think, to what Mary was talking about being your authentic self and leaning into your strengths, right? All of us, the great equalizer of all of us on this, and what we're doing right now, is we've all interviewed, right? We've all interviewed for something, and it can be scary. So in sales, someone that's confident and can overcome any of that head trash is the first thing that I look for. And a lot of that is nonverbal cues. It's body language. It's the way that they present their resume to you. It's the way they shake your hand. So confidence would be the first one. The second is, can they clearly articulate what the role is? Not what the role that they've done before, but what is the role that they're being asked to do today? And that's critical at Spectrum because, to Nakesha's point, we are growing so rapidly, and there are so many opportunities in so many different areas that you have to understand, really be able to articulate and understand what is it the role that we're asking you to do today, because you might have an opportunity to do something later that's different. And I guess really the way I do that, Joshua, is I ask folks at the very beginning, how do you understand this role? What do you understand this role to be, right? And then I love to hear what their answer is, because it's truly what their perception of what the job is, right? And then I know if I'm starting from a spot of yes, they understand what this role is, or no, I need to back up, because not all sales roles are the same. You see that even with the three of us, right? What Mary's selling, what Nakesha's selling, what I'm selling are very different.
I love that, because, I mean, look, as salespeople, what are we dealing in perceptions? We talk about, oh, it's about value. Value is relative, right? It's all about, we have to understand the other person's perception. Right there, right at the beginning of the interview process, you're just trying to see their perception. What do they think this is? What do they think they're joining here? I think that's really powerful, Michelle. How about you, Nakesha? What quality do you look for, and what advice do you give?
I would say, just hearing from what Michelle said, one very important for me is communication skills. I think being able to, of course, that conversation through the interview, but just how a person communicates in general is important, especially in sales. You know, we all talked a lot about problem solvers, being solution finders, learning customers' needs or, you know, peer needs, and that, you know, has a lot to do with our ability to communicate. And then the other one, I would say leadership qualities, whether it's, a specialist in a store or a leader. Even at a specialist, I would look for those leadership qualities, because sometimes, having that, if you want to further develop in your career, you tend to be a lot more coachable, and that's really important in our fast moving environment. And then, even from a specialist to a leader, oftentimes, if it's someone that demonstrates those qualities, they can show the art of what's possible, right? Going back to sales, if you're the top performer and you're leading by example, you can automatically raise the bench across your peer group. And then something that I would give advice for in regards to an interview, I would say, and this happens often. I wish I could give people heads up every time before the interview. But anytime you're sharing your experience, give examples. Don't just, talk about what you can offer, but share an example. Even when I just spoke about leadership qualities and what that means, for the role, I would be looking to hear the candidate speak to how they've demonstrated that in a prior role.
These are great tips: authenticity, confidence, articulation, communication, leadership, right? These are great qualities that you need to be successful in sales. And it's important to know, if you want to join the Spectrum team, show us these things, right? That's great. Let me ask you this question. Yes, obviously, you might be interviewing somebody with a certain amount of sales skills, sales experience. Their resume, you see they have the same titles as the people on your sales team. They've done the same roles as you. Okay, great. Talk to me about transferable skills, though. What have you seen in your experience? What are some people who might have been coming from a slightly different background, but they have those skills that you're looking for, they can transfer and be successful when they start doing sales? Maybe we'll start with Nakesha, then Michelle, then
Yep.
Mary.
Yep. So I think we all spoke about change agent, right? So that might be one where you've been with a company in the past that, that had a lot of movement, change, lots of undertaking over, your career with that company. And I think from a transferable skill, talking about, how you thrived in that environment, maybe some tasks that you were responsible for, depending on the role, maybe, share if you were relied on more than, other folks in the role, especially if it's a leadership position, that might be helpful. So I think just even, and I'll leverage that one because we spoke about it but the most, but that's something that I would find to be a really important transferable skill to, find a way to position that in your interview.
I agree with you, Nikita. Something else on my side is I don't necessarily mind if folks come from another industry. I actually like it because really the building blocks are the same. Can you learn the products and services, number one? And so showing, to Nikita's point, that you've learned how to sell products and services. The second point is then being able to take everything we talked about earlier, whether it be the listening skills, the confidence, the articulation, and then how would you transfer that to selling our products and services to a customer? Because like I said, the building blocks are pretty much the same. It's just the products and services are different, but what's needed is the same in terms of the way that you sell.
Awesome. I think there's going to be a little redundancy here, but I think it's great that we're all pretty consistent on what we'd be looking for, which is that, exactly, it doesn't need to have come from the exact same industry, but if you can show that you're a self-starter and innovated at your last company. Innovation doesn't have to be something major. It can just be recognizing an issue and problem solving and then bringing a new solution to the table. So I think having a few examples of how you've done that in your past experiences are completely transferable into sales. And again, it brings that a varied viewpoint, because that only strengthens us to have, varied backgrounds and varied viewpoints. So I think that self-starting and varied viewpoint is really important.
Yeah, it reminds me, you want to have this transferable skill conversation? Tell us your story. Use examples, show us that experience, show us your ability. Tell me your story. Don't feel like you're pigeonholed because the title says X. You've
Exactly.
accomplished this. Tell me about what you've accomplished. I am selfish. I could sit here with the three of you all day talking about sales. I have a million sales conversations for you, but let's be honest, we got to pay the bills here. And part of the reason why we're here is because Spectrum wants women from diverse backgrounds to apply. They want them to join the team. So let's talk a little bit about Spectrum now, right? What makes them an employer of choice for women, for diverse candidates like this? So let's talk about career development. First and foremost, that's very important to anyone. What career development opportunities are at Spectrum? Maybe Mary, you could start us off.
Sure. That's something I'm really proud of at this company, is that both internal and external, it is a huge focus for both career development and professional development of women here. You know, and I think that when you have a culture that encourages that, it happens naturally as well. So while we have mentorship programs that are more formal, there's also the opportunity to step into someone's office and say, hey, can I bounce an idea off of you? And that to me is just as important as a formal, you know, bi-weekly or bi-monthly mentorship meeting with someone that you've been assigned to. So just having that culture of understanding what is next and where someone's going is really important to me and to our company, thank goodness.
That's excellent here. We're going to talk more about that idea of mentorship. There's a question in the Q&A, I think is a dynamite one. We're going to get back to that idea. Nakesha, how about you? What career pathing opportunities can we talk about?
So I'll just say, you know, I mentioned it when I talked about my role in that store build out. You know, we've also added a lot of layers of leadership just within our store team, which has been great. I would say, you know, we're expanding our footprint, which shows the continued opportunity that we'll have. I think within the company and outside of the company, there's a great network that we have to promote all of our opportunities. I would say also something that I think we do, and this goes along to what Mary said, we hold ourselves accountable to that diversity and, you know, having women in certain roles, even to an extent of just bringing awareness to what your landscape and footprint looks like, you know, whether it's, you know, looking across my entire region or the company, we can grade ourselves. That's actually what we do. We grade ourselves to see how we're doing. And that is so inspiring to see that it's a regular conversation that we have, which is important. And then we have informal and former mentor programs, which is great. So I'll stop there. That's a few. I could keep going, but I don't want to take away from Michelle, so I'll stop there.
Thank you. Michelle, what in the enterprise space, what can you tell us?
Right. I agree with everything both Mary and Nikita said. I'll add a couple of things in here. So diversity and inclusion and being female forward, it doesn't just happen, right? It has to start at the top. This isn't just a slogan, it's a reality. And so when it's an expectation from the top down, then everyone is involved in making sure that we are promoting women, that we are really looking for the most diverse candidate that we can possibly look for. So for us, it's not checking a box, it's actually the way that we live. So that would be one piece. The second piece is we have a number of tools where folks, when you become an employee of Spectrum, that you can actually take a hold of your career and really drive it and be responsible for growing in the direction you want to grow in. One is Career Forward, which is a tool that we have. It's in our intranet, which is a tool where you can go in and identify where is it that you want to take your career, and then be matched up with different resources throughout the organization. We're a very big company, so you're able to identify different tools, or we present you with different tools to help you grow those skills, whether they be hard skills, i.e. sales skills, closing, et cetera, soft skills, listening, that sort of thing. We do have a formal mentor program. I will say something that's unique about our formal mentor program is there are milestones associated with it, and you are expected to participate in those milestones. So it's not that the win, if you will, isn't simply, hey, I had a call with my mentee and we chatted for an hour, right? No, at the end of every month or so, it might be 6 weeks, you're expected to fill out a progress report, right? And you're taught as a mentor, which was very valuable for me, how to actually mentor, right? A lot of times we think it's just simply about listening or giving our experience. But what I've learned is it's also about being able to have some tough conversations with your mentee about, hey, you're saying you might want to do this, but you're doing that. Maybe we can work on ways to help you, get closer to where you want to go. So much more formalized mentoring program, much more accountability being held there. So it's actually been a really, really great program.
This is incredible, hearing all of these things that are available to someone who joins the sales team. I mean, that's a clear indication of a company that views its employees as valuable assets to invest in. So that leads me to say, okay, I'm going to take in the role of somebody who goes, sounds great, I want to apply and get open positions, sign me up. So what we had said earlier about some advice, but maybe give me a little bit more here. How do I navigate this application and interview process? What are some things that you would say, hey, be aware of this and be ready for it? Maybe Michelle, you can kick us off.
Yeah. So for me, the very first thing would be try to find someone that you know that works here, so that you can get your resume to them and they can get your resume to the right recruiting team. Then be prepared when you go online, which I would highly suggest folks do, because we have new jobs coming on daily with our growth, that you sift through, find the jobs that you're looking for, right? And then send in as many applications as you can. One thing that's incredibly important is to not take anything personally, right? Whether you get the callback or you don't get the callback. It's not personal until you're down to the final two candidates, and even then it's not personal, right? The other thing that I have learned that has helped is if you haven't spent time looking at how to make your resume pass through the filters that our recruiters use, right? Making sure you have the right keywords in your resume, making sure that your resume has those actionable things. I think it was Nikita that said that, backing it up with examples, right? So if you're saying something along the lines of, I'm a great salesperson, which nobody would really say that, but I'm a great salesperson. Well, how are you a great salesperson? I achieved 120% of my quota, right? I had 10% growth year over year. Make your resume actionable so that the folks that are looking at it, once it makes it through the screens, right, they can actually see things that you've accomplished and how that would fit with the goals that we have.
That's excellent.
Great advice, Michelle. Yeah, the only
Really
thing I
good.
would add is I would say, because she covered a lot of great stuff, the only thing I would add is definitely go to our website. Start the process if you're interested. As Michelle said, we have a lot of recruiters. Starting that process with them, they'll help you understand that the role is a good fit. A lot of times it is, very narrow, but they might know a recruiter where your, experience aligns with another group a little more, more than the position you're applying for. So I would say start there. We're also very active on LinkedIn. So whether it's us that you network with or you're following the company, you can put in key roles and, find someone in that environment. I love when people connect with me that are interested in a career within Spectrum stores or just Spectrum. So be active on LinkedIn. I'll also say on our website for many of the roles, in an effort to recruit and ensure that it's the right fit for any applicant, something that we do is a day in the life where you can go in and for many different roles, see what it would be like in that role and in that store or in the field or wherever. So I definitely recommend, just checking out all things Spectrum from that perspective and just do a lot of research. The only other thing I would add, if it's even for a store role, visit a store. We're everywhere. So check that out as well.
Amazing. I mean, talk about two comprehensive answers. That was amazing. I would just put an exclamation point on the LinkedIn piece of it, because I think, we're talking about the importance of networking and what have you. That's your first entree into networking. And I think I probably speak for all three of us here when I say we've all been the beneficiary of other people's kindness and networking on LinkedIn, and are thrilled to pay it forward. So I think that when you can connect with someone, even if it's not my recruitment department, I'm now connected to Michelle, so I can reach out to her. And because recruiting great talent is so important to all of us here, we're happy to lean in where we can and connect people. So I think the LinkedIn piece of it is really, really important. And, having your LinkedIn show who you are is important.
Thank you all so much. This was great, wonderful advice. Just to remind everybody in the audience who might be saying, well, they said that check every day, new roles are coming up. Well, if you're on Fairygodboss and you're looking at roles that Spectrum is offering, don't worry, we refresh our list every day too. You'll see the most up-to-date information there as well. And it'll take you to the website when you click, so that you can be on the Spectrum website as they have all suggested and learn more. We have some great questions from the audience that we're gonna ask. Before I ask them, I'm gonna say to the three of you, keep this in mind. This is how we're gonna end today's call. I'm gonna ask you all to put a nice pin on it and give me the one thing you want the audience to walk away from. If they don't remember anything else, assume they're gonna remember your name. So don't go, well, I want them to remember my name. Don't worry, they're gonna remember your name. But after that, what's the one thing you want them to remember? But before we do that, some dynamite questions here. We were talking about what a great mentorship program Spectrum has. That's fantastic. It's wonderful to be part of that organization. Not every organization does that. Not every organization can help you with that. So one question that was asked, sometimes it can be hard to find a mentor, especially if you're looking for a woman in sales who's going to mentor you in your sales position. So does anybody have advice on what they can do to help maybe find a mentor for themselves?
I do. I would say, if you're looking for a mentor within your company, I would say connect. So this goes back to networking. While you might not have direct access to someone that might be a mentor, they might be able to refer you to someone else that could be a mentor for you. So I think it helps with two things. First, you get a mentor by networking, but also the more you talk about wanting to have a mentor, your brand now is defined by someone that wants to further develop their career, that wants to grow, is looking for feedback. So now you've tapped the person or the people that you've asked. And then also you've got all of these people working to find, Nakesha, a mentor across the company. So I would say start there. And I've seen that work for a lot of people, because it's not always easy. Even with our company, sometimes you might not know the resources that are out there, and it could just be me or Michelle or Mary pointing them in the right direction of where those resources are.
Excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's,
no, go ahead.
Go ahead, Joshua. Look, everyone's so polite. I was just going to add that I think that that I had mentioned before too, that that we put this mentorship. It's so awesome, and there's so many different programs, but it can be as informal as just finding someone who you find impressive at your company, and when their door is open, popping in and sort of making it an informal, and then it sort of naturally progresses into that. Like, hey, I wanted to bounce an idea off of you. Here's something I'm experiencing right now. This is what I'm thinking. Can I get your feedback on it? And make it sort of that informal piece. And then before you know it, you've sort of surreptitiously turned someone into your mentor without formalizing it on the upfront.
I agree with. But the other thing I would say is ask, right? But be very specific about your ask, right? In terms of, I'm trying to become a representative in a sales in a store, and I like what Susan Jones is doing over there in stores, because she's done X, Y, and Z, right? And find people that you want to be your mentor, but be very specific about what qualities they have that you're looking for, right, to grow, and ask. A lot of times people will say yes.
That's what makes us salespeople, is that we ask. A lot of people in our organization would be a little nervous to ask, but we'll ask for the business. We ask you to sign a contract. We ask for the money. That's what makes us salespeople. Another one from the audience, talking about what makes salespeople, dealing with a lot of rejection. This person had said, sometimes they find if they deal with too much rejection in a row, it starts throwing off the meetings they have, the pitches, the way they approach calls. What advice can we give them? What tips can we have to overcoming rejection after rejection?
Well, I can, if it's in regards to being in a sales role and getting rejection, it's common. So don't feel like, you're the only one. I've seen that from some of the top salespeople that I've worked with, and it can take a toll on you. So I would say it's normal. When you're in sales, you're going to get a lot more no's than you get yeses. But those yeses are really rewarding. So the one tip that I'll share for anyone that's in, sales, and there's kind of this offer quantity and the number of rejection, the amount of rejection you'll get is sometimes, especially if you're competitive and you're measuring, but track the no's. Sometimes we track the yeses, and that number is so small. Have some fun with it. Reverse it. Track the no's. I've had people that get so caught up. Oh my gosh, I'm like, how many no's can you get today? You only got 10, and that means you only offered 10. That's not enough. Go after getting 50 no's. And you know what happens? They'll get those 50 no's, and instead of getting the 3 yeses, now it's 10 yeses because they just offered that many more times. So I would say rejection is normal in sales. For the best of us to remember that, and then also just make it fun. Sales can be a lot of fun, and track your no's, break records, go after getting as many no's as you can, and it'll be really rewarding.
That's a really great, fun way to look at it. Shift that perspective on what that no is. We have more questions in the chat, but looking at the time, here's what I'm going to say to the audience. All 3 of these sales reps have said, connect with me, message me. So message them directly. Ask these questions that you dropped in the chat to them directly. We're going to finish up, as I said, on this. We're going to go around. I'd like to hear from Michelle, then we'll ask Nakesha, and then we'll finish up with Mary. Again, besides your name, what's the one thing you want them to remember about today, Michelle?
We need good talent, and every company needs good talent. So position yourself as the best talent out there. People we need to hire. We want the yeses. We want good quality people.
How about you, Nakesha?
All right. I'll say create your own narrative and always work on building your brand. Those will be the 2 things. I did 2, Joshua, sorry, but those are the 2 things that I want them to remember.
Excellent. Mary?
Mine's a great follow-up to Nakesha's, and mine is show up as your authentic self. Well, to both of yours, really. Show up as you, because we have an amazingly varied company, and there is room for all different types of talent, and we're excited to have the conversation. And to your point, definitely reach out. I speak for probably all of us here when I say these are conversations like this are highlights of my day. So yes. I think that's awesome.
What I love about those is they all connected. Spectrum wants talent. They want to say yes. They want to hire talented salespeople. So tell them your story. Get your narrative out there and be authentic when you do it. Thank you all so much, Nakesha, Michelle, Mary. This was fantastic. I hope we get a chance to do one of these webinars again, because I know there's 101 other sales questions we would love to ask you. Thank you to everyone in the chat who threw in stuff they wanted to, comments, thoughts, ideas, people who asked those questions. Remember, you will get a recording. We recorded it. It will be sent to you via email. But thank you all for taking time out of your day. And we say one more time, thank you to our friends at Spectrum for their time today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all so much.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.